And I would like to say thank you to Nancy Brumback of the League of Women Voters for participating. And my name is Lauren Comberg. I am a senior at Gardner High School. And although I'm only 17, and I'm not even allowed to vote, the election as well as the election process is very important to me. It wasn't even that long ago when women didn't have the right to vote. So we need to make sure that we vote. And I personally cannot wait to vote next year when I turn 18. And I want people to know that this year their vote definitely counts and how important it is that we do vote this year for this coming election. And we're going to start off with a video from Erica Krung, who is a citizen of Ashburnham. She has lived most of her adult life abroad, and she recorded a video for us from her home in Ivory Coast in West Africa. Please excuse the audio and video quality. We just felt this was an important perspective to include in today's program.
Hi, my name's Erica, and I'm an American citizen and a resident of North Central Massachusetts, but I'm speaking to you today from my home in West Africa, where I'm posted with my family. I've been living overseas for a long time, and I've been voting in U.S. elections using the absentee ballot system by mail since the early 90s. I consider voting a crucial obligation as part of my participation in the U.S. democratic system, so much so that I'm on a first-name basis with my town clerk, who helps make sure that I get my ballot in on time. As part of my life overseas, I have participated in events that help make sure that Americans, even far from home, get to participate in the democratic process and help make sure that they know how to vote by mail and other processes to help get their ballots in. I've also participated in and watched events where Americans explain to local populations in different countries the practices and policies that help keep our election system safe and fair and free. The practices and policies that keep our system and our elections free and fair are the foundation that ensures the continuation of our democracy, and they're incredibly important to the American way of life. Defending those practices and policies is everybody's job, and I'm happy to do my part, and I hope you will also. Thank you.
So to vote, of course, you must be registered, and the registration deadline is the 24th, so this coming Saturday. So there's still time for people to register. You can register online at the Secretary of State or Secretary of the Commonwealth's website. This is the place to go register online. If you are registered, it's still possible to request a mail-in ballot. And we're gonna hear more about that in a few minutes. You can do that by visiting the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website. And then there's a form you print out and you return that to your town or city clerk. And then once you have that mail-in ballot, you can mail it through the United States Postal Service or drop it off at a secure drop box in your town or city. And I'll also say, if you have it and you decide that you want to instead vote in person, it's really recommended that you bring it with you, so that the person checking off, the poll worker checking off who's voted can just verify that, yes, you did receive a mail-in ballot, but that you're electing to vote in person. In Ashburnham, as far as I know, there is not a drop box. You would take your, if you wanted to drop off your mail-in ballot, you would just bring it into the clerk. I've got the times listed here. The early in-person voting times in Ashburnham, all of that is at Town Hall at 32 Main Street. You can see the times here. Be aware that the last day that there's early voting in the town of Ashburnham, in-person early voting, is the 29th. In Lunenburg, there is a drop box in front of Town Hall at 17 Main Street. There are 2 different early voting locations during the week. It's at United Parish Hall. During the one weekend, so this coming weekend, it's at Town Hall. And keep in mind that in Lunenburg, the last day to vote early in person is on Thursday, the 29th. In Orange, there is a drop box at 6 Prospect Street, and early voting is at the Town Hall. There are the times for Orange are like, I guess there's a lunch break each day. And so the times are a little, there's a lot of them there. But the last day to early in-person vote is Thursday, the 29th. But there are 3 days that you can in-person early vote in Royalston: this Saturday, this Sunday, and the following Monday. And that Monday is the last day in Royalston that in-person early voting is available. There is, as far as I could tell, there's not a drop box in Royalston. You would just take it directly to the clerk or put it in the mail if you were doing a mail-in ballot.
So we're gonna get into mail-in voting. So Nancy Brumback is an election legislation specialist with the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, and she's the representative to the Election Modernization Coalition, and the group is responsible for drafting and advocating for the passage of the emergency elections law that's making it possible for all voters to vote by mail in the upcoming election. She's going to explain why the League of Women Voters believed it was important to expand vote by mail this election, and also the mail-in process.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Jonathan, for asking us. The Election Modernization Coalition is a group made up of the League and Common Cause and Mass Vote, Mass Purg, the Massachusetts Voter Table, the ACLU of Massachusetts, and the League and Lawyers for Civil Rights. And we have been working on election legislation now for about 12 years. We were responsible for the election reform bill in 2014 that gave you early voting for the first time in 2016. In 2018, we got automatic voter registration passed. And we were working on passing election day registration this session of the legislature until COVID hit. It became clear to us towards April that there were going to need to be some changes to our elections because of COVID. Towns were postponing town elections, and there was chaos in a lot of national primaries, you may remember this past spring, on how people were going to be able to vote. And so we started working on, and this coalition actually drafted the bill that became the law to put in place some changes, some emergency changes to deal with elections this fall, the primary in September and the current November election. All of these provisions will sunset on December 31st. This was an emergency bill, so some of them we're going to have to work on making permanent. Some of them might be extended if the emergency continues past the 31st. So, one of the things we knew was going to have to happen was a much increased mail voting options for people. It was clear that people were not going to be able to vote in person as easily. We didn't know how bad it was going to be, so we wanted to make sure those mail options were available. Before COVID, Massachusetts usually got between 3 and 5% of the people voted by mail in our elections. It's easy to handle that many ballots. But we were looking at 50, 60, 75%, or even more of people may be voting by mail in these fall elections. This was back in April when things were really bad. How to handle those was going to be a problem. So we pivoted to emergency measures that would ensure safe and accessible primary and general election voting, and also adding provisions that would help town clerks handle all of those mail ballots. Before this bill, town clerks, as June pointed out, didn't process the absentee ballots, the mailed ballots, until election day. They delivered them to the precincts to open. Well, that's not going to be possible with the kind of volume we're looking at. So a provision was included in the law to let town clerks open the outer envelopes, mark the ballots as received, make sure that they were okay, and mark the ballots as received ahead of the election. But they could not tally and report the count until the polls closed on election day. But it gave them, it would make life on election day much easier. So the decision was made to send the applications for ballots. The Secretary of the Commonwealth sent them before the primary election, and then again in September 15th before this election. The application you got in the primary gave you the option of checking, just send me the general election ballot as well without an application. The big talk is whether mail ballots are safe. Mail ballots are safe. Washington and Oregon have been doing it for decades. All states have a process in place to handle mail ballots because they send their absentee ballots. So the process is in place. It's just being expanded. They know how to do it. It doesn't favor one party over the other. There is absolutely no record of massive or serious election manipulation by mail-in voting or any other way. And you cannot vote twice with a mail ballot process. The way it works is when the clerk sends you a ballot, they put next to your name in the voting rolls, they put an EV or an AV for absentee ballot or early voting ballot that they've sent you. When your ballot is received in the envelope, they open the outer envelope, they match your name against the signature, and then they put an X next to your name to certify that your ballot has been received and accepted. So if you showed up later during early voting or on election day, you would already be, it would be clear that you've already voted. Now, if you don't return your mail ballot, then that X is not there and you can vote in person. But if you do that, you don't return your ballot, you go in and vote in person on early voting or on election day, you put the X there, and then try to mail your ballot. When it gets there, there'll be an X next to your name and they will not count that ballot. Only the first time you vote gets counted. Mail voting is going on right now. The deadline to apply for a ballot legally is October 28th. If you wait that long, you probably won't get your ballot in time. The Secretary has suggested people apply for their ballots no later than October 20th. That's tomorrow. So you really need, if you're going to apply for a mail ballot, you need to do it now. Because if you wait till the 28th, by the time the clerk processes your request, mails you the ballot, and then you mail the ballot back, you've run out of time. It's easy to return the ballot. It's postage paid. You can drop it in the mail. And as I think Jonathan mentioned, most towns have drop boxes, secure drop boxes. The law permitted that, and I'm pretty sure almost all towns have one. Maybe some of the really small towns don't. I know that my town, they converted the library drive-through book drop box to a ballot box for the duration, since the library's closed anyway. Once you have turned in your mail ballot, you've either dropped it in the mail or you've deposited it in that drop box. You can go to a website called trackmyballotma.com. That's a Secretary of State website, and it will show you where your ballot is. It will show you that it's been received. It'll say whether it's been accepted or rejected. Ballots can be rejected, for example, if you forgot to sign the inner envelope. When a ballot is rejected, the town clerk is supposed to contact the voter and give them a chance to vote again, to send them another ballot. So just because your ballot is rejected doesn't mean you can never vote. Secretary Galvin, there was a story in the Globe yesterday. He mentioned that as of 2 p.m. Saturday, 31% of Massachusetts registered voters had already voted. either by mail or that includes like a few hours of early voting too. So most of that has been by mail. So maybe 31%, let's say 28% of the state's registered voters have already voted by mail. That's incredible. It also is a indication of just how big the turnout may be in this election. It's important that voters around the country and here be patient. A complete and accurate count is much more important than a fast count. We're going to have to be sure every vote is counted. A couple of deadlines. Your mail ballot has to be postmarked by Election Day, November 3rd. The drop boxes are not available after 8 p.m. on November 3rd. That's sort of how they postmark the drop box ones. But if you have mailed it and it's postmarked, as long as it's received by 5 p.m. on Friday, November 6th, it will be counted. And thank your town clerk when this is all over.
Yes, everybody thank your town clerks, and they are exhausted.
What does ballot curing mean? Is there anybody who can answer what it means to be curing a ballot?
That's if your mail ballot comes in and there's a question about it, that the signatures don't match or you forgot to sign it, curing it is giving you a chance to make that right.
Thanks. So I was just wondering, well, first, thanks everyone for sharing your expertise and experience. I'm learning a lot. And I'm wondering if, if it's expected that the results will take a little longer to count because of the increase in voting by mail. And I'm wondering if anyone has ideas about if that's true and expected and normal, how we can keep people from losing confidence in the process due to, just a standard delay in counting.
My guess is that the major networks are going to be very careful not to call elections and to keep those expectations down. It's obviously not going to be counted as quickly. So some states may be in good position to report their final results. The other thing is the people will know how many ballots haven't been counted yet. And so you could have a sense of if someone's way ahead, whether there are enough ballots still sitting out there. But in Massachusetts, ballots can be counted to come in up until November 6th. And military ballots can be counted up to 10 days after the election date. So, if it's extremely close elections anywhere, like some of the Senate elections, we aren't going to know for a while. And that's just the way it is. But it doesn't mean anything is wrong.
Okay, thank you all for coming. That has to be our last question. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and participating, as well as the League of Women Voters for co-sponsoring today. We're the election defense team of North Central Massachusetts, and we are committed to supporting the democratic process in a free and fair election. The election defense team is one of hundreds of teams across the country committed to promoting a free and fair democratic process this fall. And we want to encourage all eligible voters to participate in the election and to ensure that everyone's vote is counted. It is completely counted and everyone's vote matters.